Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And you are here with Austin from Ohio 2. How'd you like that one? Because I'm back. And I never gone nowhere. Ain't gonna keep me down because I don't care. I do stupid things like that when I get real antsy. Like I feel like I got over on them somehow. It was the whole process of creating a backup channel for me was very, very annoying because every time that I would change my Google password, which, as many of you know, interlinked to my YouTube, of course, because Google products. All the passwords are interconnected. And every time I would change my Google password, I would go to add another account to YouTube and it would say enter password. But when I entered the new password that I just created, it would just say try again. And I got locked out twice. And I'm pretty sure I just somehow must have signed out of my Google account and then it let me make a new one because I could use my screen lock instead of my Google password. And I thought that was kind of cool for me to recover, to get access to whatever I needed to get access to. It was actually kind of a headache. And I wanted to start on this page here because this would be my little studio thing. And here you can see all the videos that I just have sitting here. But these top two here, the first one was the part 1, which should have been one video. And the 13 and 4 second is the part 2 because I guess at the 33-minute mark when I was talking or a video was going in an article we were reading, it just cut and it said video corrupted. And there was a little repair button. And I thought this app was going to make me pay for it. And I was going to get really mad. So I hit it anyway. And it repaired the video. So I uploaded that. I put out a little disclaimer first and said, hey, I'm going to be uploading one video in 2 parts. And I briefly explained the situation. I uploaded these 2. And then I went to bed. I woke up. And they were both gone. I still got all the notifications, and I was suspended for a week. And I had to get ready and go to work, so I couldn't sit down and actually put time into making a backup channel until I got off of work. But I wanted to explain what happened for anybody who might have missed the situation that happened in my neck of the woods, you could say. To quote Al Roker, we all love him, right? No, I'm just kidding. That guy creeps me out. And there's where you can see I have 2 hours that I can record. But I'm about to free up a lot more space. I was actually recording for a little bit, and then I fell off my game because I was still flustered about the situation with the whole backup channel thing. And I was reading some articles, and I felt like I wasn't really into it. And I got to about the 17-minute mark, and I said, you know what? I'm starting over from scratch. That's the first time I've ever done that. Only because I fell off my game because of the annoying situation with creating a backup channel, which I hope many of you have found by now. But I just wanted to explain what happened in detail for anybody who might have been curious as to where I went. If anybody was at all. But there are some things that I would like to show you from the video last night, and also some other things that I think are relevant. But minus certain things from yesterday's video that I believe was responsible for the takedown of both of them. Alright, let's get to it. And here we are at the first one. The first one that I brought up in the video yesterday. This one, I believe, was partially, if not mostly, responsible for why it got taken down. But that's okay because Well, and this is kind of funny. In the other video, I said I won't be censoring myself anymore because I got really mad that I kept having to do that. And look what it cost. And if I plan on doing this for any length of time, I'm going to need to watch my P's and Q's. Obviously, to the extent of which I see fit. Certain things I will say, and I will not apologize for it. And I'll look into other things if this one starts getting strikes and stuff and all that. But this one here is very important to what's going on right now. The whole thing, this is part of it. And old Gil Bates, or if you have a billy goat on your farm, call him that too, foundation-funded genomics firm, mining DNA data through C tests. March 5th, 2021. Written by a Miss Natalie Winters. BGI Genomics, the Chinese Communist Party-linked genomics firm flagged by U.S. officials as mining the DNA of Americans, has collaborated extensively with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the National Pulse can reveal. Is this not treason against the American people by a private corporation, but ultimately by two people, openly? The company has recently come under fire following a 60 minutes expose on the company's use of C19 tests to collect, store, and exploit biometric information on American citizens, according to former U.S. intelligence officials. What's more, a recent Reuters article linked the firm to the Chinese Communist Party's military. And this is what they do. They come out and they admit this stuff. They say, yep, we're doing it. Here's a 60 minutes expose, but they leave out a lot of details. But nothing ever gets done about it. And they told us that they were doing it so they don't feel bad about it. And they believe that it gives them more power to do it that way. And it says, in addition to the Obama administration enabling the firm to gain a foothold in the U.S., the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation played a critical role in BGI's American expansion. And it talks about how in 2012 and 2010, that this man collaborated with the Chinese government, planned to at least, to do these projects here. And we'll get down in there, but just do it this way. This is a pretty big story. For old BG also bought 242,000 acres worth of farmland. Wants us to eat Soylent Green, lab-grown, quote, meat. He's spraying the skies, as we see every single day. And he's patenting technology to use for this. This is a huge part of the beast system. They're playing with human genomes. They're playing with what God created us. And anything that has altered what God has created us in his own image with, you are no longer a part of the book of life. And I firmly believe that. I 100% believe that. Because there's just no way that man should ever have gotten to this point to where we could do this to ourselves. That's really what this is when you think about the whole of humanity. Think about it like as an individual. Stab your foot. That's what all of humanity is doing. We are doing this to ourselves. And all the proof you need in that is that a human being is doing this to other human beings. We're doing it to ourselves. This is a time unlike any other in history. The technology that they have now is not even, it's incomprehensible to most people. We could say it that way. And that's because I remember a time where we thought that the RFID chips that was like their thing. They wanted to get everybody in the world that. They wanted the this and that. And we thought that was nuts. But the stuff they got now makes that look like it was 100 years ago. And as you can see, this man, Billy Goats, has been planning this for a long time. For he visited BGI's China-based headquarters, where he witnessed the company's genetic sequencing operation, as described by the Financial Times. This is treason against us. Treason against... I'm sure our government was involved with this, so it's not treason against them, because they're probably involved with this. But when you get to a point in a society where a corporation owner can go outside of the realm of business into... This guy went from business to science and the medical field without any, quote, real knowledge about any of it. He just throws money at it and says, do this, figure it out. He hires a bunch of smart guys and they figure it out. I would say this is the ultimate act of treason in the past 10 years. This is more than just like any other little thing. This is actual modification of human beings. And once it gets to transhumanism, where we start to see people in our everyday lives walking around with a smart mark, like that cartoon, start to get a little concerned. Look at the bottom paragraph. Well, the bottom sentence. BGI executives see this not as the end game, but as the springboard for a new drug discoveries, advanced genetic research, and a transformation of public health policy. And that was in 2010. 11 years later, where are we at? "11 years later, oh, I know where we're at. Let's see. Oh, yeah, 11 years later. This is where we are. This is where we are. None other than Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And this was the smoking gun for the longest time. It still is. This right here is the smoking gun. October 18th, 2019, they sat down on camera, in your face, and they coordinated this whole thing. Right in front of us, and they used the news and the social media, TV shows, every tool at their disposal they use to make you believe it. To usher us into what they like to call, for us, the new normal. But it's the ages-old New World Order that they've always wanted since time immemorial. And if they would have figured this out back in 2001 instead of the route that they went, which they did. They did the Dark Winter exercises and all of that. But I believe that they needed to, set the foundation for this with what happened in 2001. Because when that happened, I was young, but it was a paradigm shift. The world was completely transformed overnight. Overnight. I remember we got taken out of school. I was in 3rd grade. We got taken out of school. And my mom came to pick us up and took us to our grandmother's house, where we saw on TV what happened to the towers. I was a little young to understand at the time, and way too young to look at people who did it. But they got that going, and it changed the entire world. But now we have a paradigm shift with this. And it's also going to be a double paradigm shift, because also climate change, their whole, we know what it actually is, but what they call it, it's going to be a double paradigm shift. Many people are not going to make it to that point in time. But this is what's going on right now. And everything that has stemmed from it, all the terrible things that have happened over this past year, and these couple months into the new year, we have only ourselves to blame. Because this stuff was exposed before the V, even hit our shores. And you could still come here and read about it, and you could watch it, and you can familiarize yourself with it. And you could see, hey, this is going on right now. They even predict 10 years into the future during this little exercise that they did. And they came out and they said, we ran a simulation, but we didn't predict it. So, yeah, we just didn't predict it. And they were telling the truth. They didn't predict it because it was a coordinated thing. You can't predict something that you're actively doing. You can't plan to go run and then say, I predict I'm going to run. How stupid is that? So, and they leave it up for everybody to see. They still have been doing that. I have no idea why. But they'll take me down. They'll take Carol down. They'll take Tim down. They already took Richie down. Everybody who was doing this last year is not really doing this now, because they got taken off of here. A lot of people did. And new people have sprung up. And that's why I do this. All right. Now let's dig into this. This was in the video last night as well. And this is FactSet launches the True Value Labs Sustainable Development Goals Monitor. And you can see it was from yesterday. And it's a monitor designed to oversee corporate alignment to individual UN SDGs in real time. So it's a worldwide monitor of companies and social media giants, probably education, a whole bunch of players are going to be monitored by this thing. And that is to turn into a policing method for the New World laws. Every law that they make up between now and however long. I think it's funny, they always talk about, they'd come out and they say, oh, we can establish this new order for the ages, for hundreds of years, forever. And they think they're going to do it that way. But let's read this here. FactSet, a global provider of integrated financial information, analytical applications, and industry-leading service, has announced the launch of the True Value Labs SDG Monitor, designed to enable investors and other interested parties to view the alignment of corporations around the globe to the UN Sustainable Development Goals in real time, and review how this alignment differs in emphasis across regions. True Value Labs, which was recently acquired by FactSet, has built a data set underpinning the SDG Monitor that arises from more than 100,000 information sources in 13 languages, such as news, NGO reports, industry publications, trade journals, social media, and now covers more than 21,000 companies worldwide. The monitor itself is free to use and is organized by country and or region, allowing investors and investment professionals to see how companies in aggregate compare across regions in their alignment to the SDGs. So yeah, they make it to where it's free to use for anybody. Oh, go ahead, yeah, knock yourself out. Free to use. Of course. And all these companies are going to have to, well, abide by the Sustainable Development Goals, or what's going to happen? Oh yeah, they're going to yank your cryptocurrency. Boop. One button on the screen. Now you don't have a company. The analysis goes beyond the conventional approach of measuring SDG alignment via percentage of company revenue, and revenue categorized by the goals and centers on externalities from a stakeholder perspective. For example, a clean energy car company that has a history of poor labor practices will be evaluated not just on the goal of clean energy, an area in which it generates revenue, but also on the goal of decent work, in which it does not. This focus on overall corporate effect, both positive and negative, offers differentiated perspective on how companies impact their environments. And of course, they bring it up like it's a good thing. Oh, we'll be able to see if companies are doing poor in their worker relations department. Oh, the work environment is just terrible. But in reality, it is going to be a terrible work environment. And no, it won't be held against them. It just goes on to say how, according to the True Value ESG Investor Forum 2020 poll, 28% of respondents said their investment framework was currently aligned to the UN SDGs, while 42% said they have plans to align. Just saying how it's gonna, more companies are joining on. The UN Global Compact drives business, awareness, and action in support of the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. Fulfilling these ambitions will take an unprecedented effort by all sectors in society, said Leila Karbasi, Chief of Programs at the United Nations Global Compact. We are delighted to see True Value Labs harnessing technology to provide a new layer of understanding around real-world outcomes through the framework of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So straight up just saying, yep, we're very delighted to see our world government being built. Yeah, this is not a good thing. This kind of thing eventually becomes ingrained in company registration. When you register your company, now you're going to have to register it through the UN. The takeover is happening on all aspects of society, not just any one or two. All aspects simultaneously. Agenda 2030 goals, and we did the translation of the 2030 goals. I actually might do an updated version of that. I might do that tomorrow, actually, because that's very important. The translations of the goals, because when you first read them and you think about it, it doesn't sound too bad. But whenever you translate it into real life, it's the worst thing you could ever imagine. Let's see what else I have for you guys tonight. Here's a good one I came across from today. Lucy McBath says pandemic creates new urgency around gun control measures. I almost said the bad word. U.S. Representative Lucy McBath has grown tired of the all-talk, no-action approach she perceives on Capitol Hill when it comes to limiting access to guns. But that could change as early as Wednesday. The House is expected to vote on a bill that will require background checks for virtually all firearms sales. That means between you and a family member. There's already a background check whenever you go to the store. You go to the gun shop, buy a gun, first thing you got to do, background check. But you think you should have to go get a background check if you're like selling it to your brother or something? Just because you're both collectors and you wanted to trade or something? McBath is one of the 8 original co-sponsors of the measure, H.R. 8, but nearly every Democrat and 3 Republicans have since signed on. The Marietta Democrat ran for Congress in 2018 partially to advocate for tighter gun laws after high-profile school shootings and her own son's murder. She said recently that the CP has heightened the need as cities across the U.S. report increases in gun crimes, suicides, and domestic violence. It's not going to be easy, but I truly believe that now is the time. Who else said that? The current U.S. president. The country is really, really ripe. I cannot tell you how many people every week I'm talking to that are anxiously waiting for us to pass legislation. They are tired. They are afraid. I'm sure that was a lie, but even if there are people out there, oh, they're so afraid, but I bet they have a gun for themselves. And if they don't, then they're just heavily, heavily brainwashed. We've been over the facts before on this channel about that. And I can actually pull it up and put it in my next video if anybody wanted to argue facts of firearms in the hands of individuals. The pros and cons of armed societies and disarmed societies. And I guarantee my top argument is going to destroy every single argument out there. What murdered 260 million unarmed victims last century? Tyrannical governments over disarmed societies. Gee, that's all you need. I'm eating Mentos again. I'm sorry if I'm pausing for too long. I like Mentos. They really help me out. Polling in Georgia and nationally shows that universal background checks are among the most popular gun control proposals. However, many House Republicans say they won't support it. Those GOP members are also critical of a second measure up for a vote Wednesday that would close the so-called Charleston loophole for firearm sales. Yep, multiple bills. Boom, 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 boom. The ultimate goal is to disarm the American people before an all-powerful world government. Moving on. And we already know that anybody who acts as the president is going to back some form of restrictions, whether it be on any amendment. It doesn't necessarily have to be the second. The First Amendment even. Designating certain ideologies as terrorism, that's against the First Amendment. The Biden administration said Monday it looks forward to working with Congress to strengthen the federal gun background check system and to implement common sense steps to reduce gun violence, urging the House to pass 2 measures that would close existing loopholes in the system. Yeah, they always use, come on guys, it's only common sense. It's only common sense to register every single firearm in the country. It's only common sense to just give up our firearms because we're too advanced of a society. We live in a civil society. We just give away all of our firearms and all of our little trinkets and maybe even fireworks. Maybe even those little snakes and sparklers too. Those might be too dangerous. We just get rid of all that and then we can have such a perfect world. Oh, I mean, it could be so great. Nobody will ever get shot anymore. And only the government and responsible people will have guns. And they do all the shooting and burning and sniping and poisoning and spraying and dumping and bombing. Should I stop? And lying. No, I'll stop. Sorry. Gun violence is a public health crisis. Yes, and actually, something about that. In Ohio, for all my Ohio peeps, in Ohio, a couple months ago, our governor, it was before our health director or whatever she was, it was before she stepped down because there was too much controversy over her. But our governor wanted to give power to her to create a registry for firearms because it was a public health crisis, so it needed to be held by the health director. And if they do that, then they can subvert every single law under regulation. Oh, it's a health regulation. They have so many ways to go about this. So many ways. So many ways to reach into your closet or gun safe or whatever you have and just lift it right out of there without you even knowing. Hey, everyday gun violence, community violence, domestic violence, suicides, and mass shootings take American lives and forever alters many more. Okay, well, let me stop there. Let's say that they did pass a law banning all firearms, and all law-abiding good people gave up their firearms. Let's see, gun violence would still run rampant because, quote, criminals or evil people will say are not going to give their guns up. Community violence will still happen, same reason. Domestic violence will still happen even without. Suicides will still happen because you don't need a gun to commit suicide. And mass shootings will probably still happen because, well, only the government will have guns. So there will be plenty of MSs to go around. Last year, we saw record levels of homicides in cities throughout our country. Violence that disproportionately impacts Black and Latino communities. Okay, yeah. We did see record levels of homicides in cities. You know what cities? The most tightly controlled cities when it comes to guns. Chicago. New York City, LA. There's plenty. And of course they have to bring the race into it because they're always playing that. Always playing divide and conquer. circle back around. Psaki calls gun control a priority for the Biden administration. Oh, of course it is, because they're way behind on that one. You know their first goal when the CIA set out the goal to disarm Americans? The first goal was 1966. Yep, I have the document actually. CIA drive to disarm America. Maybe I'll show it in my next video. Yep, the target date was 1966. And we obviously know that failed. It failed every time they tried it, because so far Americans have been like, no, we have the right to protect ourselves. Second Amendment. God-given rights. Oh, to which Bill Gates went out and said, oh, the virus is terrible in my home country because we have freedom. Because freedom is bad. But it talks about the federal gun background check system, a proven tool to reduce gun violence and save lives. People watch too much TV. All they got to do is say, hey, we're gonna kill people to save lives. We're bombing children in other countries to save American lives. And people are like, yeah, what he said. This system, called the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, has kept millions of guns out of potentially dangerous hands. Potentially dangerous. Who decides who's potentially dangerous? The administration encourages the House to pass 2 bills that would help close existing loopholes in the system. And while they have stuff like this going on, I'm going to show you an article from my local news. This is from my local news station. Another loaded handgun confiscated at Pittsburgh International Airport. Now, if people don't know this, Pittsburgh is literally a 35-minute drive from my front door. If I left right now at 8:15, I can be in Pittsburgh at best before 9 o'clock. But the TSA officers caught an Allegheny County, PA woman with a .380 caliber handgun loaded with 7 at the security checkpoint on Saturday. Oh my, you see how they put it out as already an illegal thing? What crime was committed? And people will say, taking a gun into an airport. You should be able to take your gun into an airport. If you walked into an airport and you knew every single person had a gun, would you think that somebody was going to try to shoot somebody? I wouldn't. I'd be like, oh man, if someone tries to do harm, everyone's going to put them down. Because that's how it works. But they already put it up there like it's illegal. This type of article shapes public perception. Just the way it even reads. Another loaded handgun confiscated at Pittsburgh International Airport. And they're always getting on here, and used to see them on the television. Terrible. It was the 8th handgun stopped by TSA officers at the airport so far this year. That's not a lot in 3.5 months. I just don't understand like what people get when they read this. When TSA officers spotted the gun in the checkpoint x-ray machine, the Allegheny County police were alerted, came to the checkpoint, questioned the woman, and confiscated the gun. Okay, so once their x-ray machine caught the gun, they called the authorities, who then came over, questioned the woman, and took her weapon. That sounds like the disarmament of an American citizen who committed no crime to me. And that's what I get when I read these things on my local news. But you should see the comments on my local news page. And the only reason I won't do that is because people I know personally comment on there saying some stupid shit. Excuse my French. So I will not plaster them all over my video. Travelers are not permitted to carry their guns onto airplanes. This applies to individuals with and without concealed carry permits. However, passengers are permitted to transport their firearms as checked baggage if they're properly packed and declared at their airline ticket counter to be transported in the belly of the plane. Checked firearms must be unloaded, packed in a hard-sided case, locked, and packed separately from ammunition. Well, yeah, because if anything were to happen, how the hell are you going to get your defense? You're not. When an individual shows up at a checkpoint with a firearm, the checkpoint lane comes to a standstill until the police resolve the incident. There's no incident. How is it an incident that needs resolving? It's a woman carrying her self-defense mechanism into something that's going to transport her within her home country. There's no crime, but the way they talk about it, this is how they have been doing it. You don't have to pass any laws if the people already believe that it's something that is bad. So, I just wanted to share that with you guys. Let's see. This one goes with the monitor for the SDG goals. GM will sell only zero-emission vehicles by 2035. The move, one of the most ambitious in the auto industry, is a piece of a broader plan by the company to become carbon neutral by 2040. The days of the internal combustion engine are numbered. It's only been 100 and some odd years. They should have been numbered. We could have been driving something. Actually, we could have been driving something that is free to all of us, but it was then patented and suppressed after the owner of the patent was killed. But General Motors said Thursday that it would phase out petroleum-powered cars and trucks and sell only vehicles that have zero tailpipe emissions by 2035. A seismic shift by one of the world's largest automakers that makes billions of dollars today from gas-guzzling pickup trucks and sport utility vehicles. The announcement is likely to put pressure on automakers around the world to make similar commitments. It could also embolden President Biden and other elected officials to push for even more aggressive policies to fight climate change. Leaders could point to GM's decision as evidence that even big businesses have decided that it's a time for the world to begin to transition away from fossil fuels that have powered the global economy for more than a century. GM's move is sure to roil the auto industry, which, between car and parts makers, employed about 1 million people in the United States in 2019, more than any other manufacturing sector by far. It will also have huge ramifications for the oil and gas sector, whose fortunes are closely tied to the internal combustion engine. Yeah, something like this would decimate the oil and gas. And around where I live, people have been making good money on oil and gas. People that have worked there. So yeah, this is just what is. This is all going to be a part of that monitor that's going to monitor these companies to make sure that they are complying with the SDGs. A rapid shift by the auto industry could lead to job losses. Not could, it will lead to job losses and business failures in related areas. Electric cars don't have transmissions or need oil changes, meaning conventional service stations will have to retool what they do. Electric vehicles will also... Now, think about that. Think about that. Think about how many people work in the auto industry as a whole, including parts stores, tire shops, detail shops, all of it. Electric vehicles also require fewer workers to make, putting traditional manufacturing jobs. Of course, it's going to be AI. AI is going to do everything. There's no need for human beings anymore. And that's why they want to get rid of so many of us. But electric cars are the fastest growing segment of the auto industry, still make up a small proportion of new car sales, blah, blah, blah. But this is not going to be the only car company. There's also going to be more companies that come out and say that they're doing things differently as they get going on their monitor thing. 21,000 companies so far, so you just do the math. There's one more thing that I wanted to read to you guys tonight. A little bit of. And this is: the Great Reset is coming for the currency. This was March 2nd. As the Great Reset proceeds from globalist think tanks and technology billionaires to allied media elites, governments, schools, and woke corporations, what will be reset next? Supporters of the World Economic Forum's all-encompassing Great Reset agenda are eyeing big changes for the global monetary system. Plans that might once have been dismissed as pure speculation or conspiracy theories are now being openly pushed by people who occupy the highest levels of power. Very true, but somehow they're still considered conspiracy theories. I see an article that said, "Oh, what is the Great Reset conspiracy theory and why is it showing up?" It was by New York Times or something. Oh, gee, I don't know. Maybe because Klaus Schwab wrote a book about it. They've been talking about it since 2014, at least I know. I mean, there was a book written in 2010 called The Great Reset, but that was just like some guy, I think. He's seen it coming. I don't want notifications. Sorry. President Joe Biden's economic policies were grafted directly from the Build Back Better language of the Great Reset's authors. Biden's agenda for the economy is now being spearheaded by Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. Oh, and what was she before? The Federal Reserve Chairman. I forgot. The former Federal Reserve Chair has taken a particular interest in stamping out cryptocurrencies and expanding the reach of the International Monetary Fund. She's taken a particular interest in stamping out cryptocurrencies and expanding the reach of the International Monetary Fund, which could ultimately be the issuer of a new global digital currency. Will be. And Bitcoin will be absolved into that. So don't even think that Bitcoin is anything that, oh, you don't need a Federal Reserve. Yeah, not right now. Until the International Monetary Fund says no more. Bitcoin's recent surge to $1 trillion in market value has since pulled back some irks central bankers and government officials. It only irks them as far as they're allowing Bitcoin to go. It's all a manufactured thing to suck people into the idea of cryptocurrency. There's no real value in Bitcoin. None. If there was no system to use Bitcoin on, what could you use your Bitcoin for? In real physical life. Oh yeah, nothing. So also, will the new digital global cryptocurrency look like? %100%. While they have long complained that cryptocurrencies are supposedly a major vehicle for fraud and other illegal transactions, officials are now focusing their ear on crypto mining energy usage. Since the Great Reset prescribes a transition to a sustainable economy, there's that word again, sustainable. Anything tied to resource consumption is now subject to being attacked. Yes. Yellen derided Bitcoin as an extremely inefficient way to conduct transactions because the amount of energy consumed in processing those transactions is staggering. A report just released on Monday by Citi Bitcoin Tipping Point makes the case that Bitcoin could become the currency of choice for international trade within 7 years. That assumes governments won't act in conjunction, ban, or co-opt technology to ensure they maintain legal tender monopolies. Which they will. Anytime there's ever been an attempt to dethrone the people who were in power, they've always found a way to squash that. In principle, Yellen and her global central planning cohorts support the digitization of money. In fact, they're enthusiastic about the prospects for replacing circulating paper cash with digital tokens. Yeah, the digital dollar, or whatever they said it was. You'll have a digital wallet. Seen a commercial about that and how more companies are taking to cryptocurrency, and it's all just to get the world onto an electric currency that they can then consolidate into a global currency once the International Monetary Fund takes control of all of it for the greater good, as they always say. Maybe something with CONVID. New blueprint for worldwide inflation. Last Thursday, Yellen told the G20 that the United States would back a new issuance of the IMF's International Reserve Asset known as the Special Drawing Right. Oh, what have they created? A special drawing right. I wonder what that is. The move, which reverses the opposition of the Trump administration, will direct the liquidity to poor countries struggling to recover from the sea downturn on their own. SDRs were last issued in 2009, in part to address liquidity concerns, in part to build a precedent for something bigger down the road. In 2011, the IMF issued its first blueprint for replacing the US dollar as the world reserve currency with a global SDR regime. In 2016, the IMF added the Chinese yuan to the SDR basket, elevating China's communist government to prominence on the world monetary stage. Economist James G. Rickards predicts, over the next several years, we will see the issuance of SDRs to transitional organizations, such as the UN and World Bank, to be spent on climate change infrastructure and other elite pet projects outside the supervision of any democratically elected bodies. I call this new blueprint for worldwide inflation. Rickards views the Great Reset of the monetary system as being ultimately bullish for precious metals. The push to digitize and globalize the US dollar will only accelerate the demise of its value and increase the need for investors to hold tangible safe havens. There's a chapter in the book that Klaus Schwab wrote, C19er, The Great Reset. And there's a chapter called The Fate of the US Dollar. Talks about all this. Yellen and Powell openly pushed for digital dollar. If the Federal Reserve, perhaps in coordination with the IMF, attains the ability to inject stimulus directly into digital wallets, then quantitative easing could take a whole new meaning. Central bankers could bypass Congress and distribute their own aid as they see fit. They already bypass Congress. The Federal Reserve operates outside the U.S. legal system. Remember Amschel Rothschild? Give me control of a nation's money supply, and I care not who makes its laws. Treasury Secretary Yellen recently told the New York Times, too many Americans really don't have access to easy payment systems and to banking accounts. I think this is something that digital dollar, central bank digital currency, could help with. I think it could result in faster, safer, and cheaper payments. Yeah, this is how we do it. A one world digital currency. We all gotta have bank accounts, guys. Don't we want to be a part of advanced civilization? A central bank digital currency might also result in the imposition of negative interest rates or automatic deduction of taxes with no way for holders to escape, except by exiting the dollar-denominated financial system entirely. Yep. Fed Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell told Congress last week that the Fed is indeed looking carefully at issuing a digital dollar, calling it a high-priority project for us. Anyone who is concerned about the prospect of being herded into a new digital currency regime should make it a high priority to own tangible money that exists outside the financial system. Raw materials, gold, silver. If we went back to barter and trade, you wouldn't have to worry about any of this, because each one of us has things that the other may value. That's why barter and trade will always be king. I have something you want, you have something I want. Let's make a trade. Boom. No technology or government mandate can change the fact that gold and silver have universally recognized inflation-resistant value. And that's because gold and silver are gold and silver. There's no interest on what's real. And that is why the Federal Reserve System was created in the first place, to issue something fake. But I'm going to stop there, and we'll pick it up again tomorrow when I am better on my game. I wanted to just put something out for the backup channel just to give it a test and whatnot and to see how it was going to go. But hopefully tomorrow it'll be better. Let's pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.